Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to this program. This is the beginning of 2023. This year, in the Zimbabwe calendar, there's going to be elections. The elections, no one is yet certain when they will be held. They could be held anytime from March, but at the very latest, end of July. These elections could be a repeat of past elections, i.e., there will be rigged elections, and the opposition will participate and give Zanu PF legitimacy. And so there will be no meaningful change. What is interesting here is we have a situation where the opposition itself is insisting that they will win the elections, although there is absolutely no evidence on the ground to suggest that they will win the elections. Let's just listen to their video for the beginning of the year making this claim.
Citizens Coalition for Change is a citizens' movement that is the vehicle through which Zimbabweans will reclaim their dignity, achieve prosperity, and build better lives. We're putting citizens back at the center of decision making, and together we will build a new great Zimbabwe. Citizens' hopes, dreams, and aspirations for a better nation are the fuel driving our movement. 2022 was the Citizens' Year of Action for Change. We won by-elections over and over again, despite the odds. We dominated, winning over 60% of them. This is just a sign of what's to come. We're going to win big in 2023. We also carried out a mass mobilization exercise, Wazo, that reached all villages, towns, cities, and provinces in Zimbabwe. We registered multitudes of new voters, young and old. We pushed for electoral reform and to prepare our
That's it. And to discuss the issue, we have got Benjamin. Good evening, Benjamin.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on the program. Good evening, viewers. Thank you for joining us.
What do you think of their comment there? MDC, are they going to win big?
Oh well, we have had this story for a number of times now, so we are kind of used to talk big and very little result. So I honestly don't see the difference from previous elections or previous exercises of this caliber. So I don't buy the story.
Totally agree with you. I think one of the issues that they claim there is that we have registered uh, voters in multitude. That is not true. In May 2022, ZEC, the Election Commission, reported that only 250,000 Zimbabweans had registered since the last election in 2018. So, in the 4 years since the last election, only 250,000 new voters had registered. And to go by Triple C's own target, they had claimed that they were going to um, target registering 6 million voters. In other words, they only managed to register one one quarter of a million, which is 4% of their own target. So to keep on claiming that we have registered multitudes of voters is totally meaningless, And I don't think between May last year and um, December this year, they've managed to register even another quarter of a million, you know. So to keep on claiming that we've registered multitudes is completely out. So we are really looking at a situation here where we are going through the whole process again. No reforms have been implemented. Zanu PF is going to step in and blatantly rig the elections. And we are back to square one. By participating, Triple C are giving Zanu PF legitimacy. And so we could end up with a situation 2023, Zanu PF is back in power. And this we are as we were.
And if I may add, yeah, the most sad part about this is Triple C is giving people false hope, the citizens of Zimbabwe false hope. If you look at some of the statistics, talking about some of the statistics that you are giving, in the video they said they managed to win by-elections by over 60%. Let us not also forget that it was actually their own uh, members of parliament, and or let's say it was actually their own seats, because since they were the ones that actually chased away or recalled most of their members of parliament. So we could say the 160% of their strongholds is not the total of Zimbabwe. It was their strongholds, which clearly tilts now the indication to say they lost over 40% of what they had. So let's not look at it as a positive thing, but rather it's something that they should be worried about, to say from our stronghold we actually lost 40%. Then it actually gives the whole picture of what we are dealing going into the 2023 election.
Exactly, and I think the other point to be remembered here, particularly for those maybe not so familiar with the Zimbabwe electoral system, is that ZANU PF has never, since the GNU in 2008 to 2013, ZANU PF has changed its strategy completely. Instead of winning all the seats, ZANU PF now realized, then since that GNU, realized that they needed to allow the opposition to win some seats to give the facade that Zimbabwe is a healthy and functioning multi-party democratic system. That is important. So ZANU PF is no, when we say ZANU PF is going to rig the elections, they are not going to rig the elections so that they decimate the opposition completely. They want the opposition to participate. They want the opposition to give ZANU PF the legitimacy. So in this particular case, they will always allow the opposition to win. But what our friends were talking about here in this video is a situation where they are winning the elections. When they are saying they are going to win big, they mean they are going to win big to form the next government. That ZANU PF will never allow. They have got the, the strings of power. They've got all, without reforms, ZANU PF can decide which, by how much they win the elections. And that is where the problem lies. We are not going to have any meaningful change as long as ZANU PF determines how many seats the opposition can hold. And it always has the majority in parliament, and and also the presidents, of course. That is where the problem lies. We can move on now to another article that Benjamin, you were going to introduce.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So there's talking about the 2023 upcoming elections and 2023 as a whole, to say what our New Year's resolution as Zimbabwe. So I found an interesting article by Tendai Ruben Bofana. It says if Zimbabweans are serious about change in 2023, should if Zimbabweans are serious about change, then 2023 should be a year of action. So he was he was basically talking about our past from since we had a serious opposition which came through Morgan Changirai and his friends and colleagues, and how they handled the business of elections, every election since year 2000, and how they lost, and they kept on saying all these things that we are hearing, we will win this coming year, uh, you know uh, so it's he was actually saying that truth be told, a lot of people think that when we set resolutions, it's just about putting them in our minds and or writing it down. But he is right to say you have to act upon it. But it also depends what action you are going to take to try and get the desired result. And I found it very interesting if we could all have time just to go through it and 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 share our views and our thoughts. So he was talking about how this whole election process is. We all know that Zanu PF will rig the election. Come what may, they need to to rig the elections, and they need an opposition that is also willing to participate in rigged elections, so that the whole democratic story can appear, of which we know there is no democracy in Zimbabwe, especially when we know that the person that is running the race is the guy that is also you know the referee, and the guy holding the gun. It's 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 a mess. They control everything. So, and we took, when we're looking back, you know uh, our previous election that was in 2018, and the events that followed through the that followed through. We saw people were shot, people were killed by the army. And you're suggesting, why don't we look for other ways to actually share our, like, to air our view, or to air our frustration? Surely there's better ways than to send our people to go and get killed. And he suggested, like a stay away, just to say, let us just keep a back seat. And I don't know, what is your view on that?
Well, I must admit, I find Bofana, I admire his passion. He's one of the few Zimbabweans who really genuinely care about finding a solution to Zimbabwe's political and economic crisis. And I salute that. The one thing, however, in this article that I would be critical of is him describing the Morgan Changirai and his group as a formidable opposition. I find that is not true to the historic facts, because we should not forget that the MDC was has been on the political stage for the last 22 years, now getting on to 23 years, and yet they failed to implement even one reform. And out of those 22 years, 5 of which they were in the GNU, and they failed to implement even one meaningful democratic change. We cannot surely call such failure a formidable opposition. They are not a formidable opposition. We wouldn't be in this mess if they were formidable. So that is my where I beg to differ with Mofana there. But I agree with him also on the point that he's making there that people should, as a way, because we can't stop Zanu PF going ahead with the elections, and we cannot stop our friends in the opposition, Triple C, participating, even when they have themselves. I mean, the likes of Tendai BT, David Coulter, they've admitted that these elections are flawed, so flawed and illegal. David Coulter admitted in his book that the only obvious solution would have been to boycott the elections. And yet they did not because they feared that if they boycotted, the other opposition parties will participate and win the few seats that are there on offer. So they are participating out of greed, you know. And I agree with Mofana. And under the circumstances, for the ordinary Zimbabwean, the only option, well, at least one of the viable options is not to participate at all. Particularly when you know when what you will achieve by participating is give Zanu PF legitimacy. You know, the opposition are participating just as a cover for their greed.
Yes, I'm glad you brought about the word greed or in this conversation, because this is where I find is the biggest problem for us as a people, us as Zimbabwe. Because if you look at it, uh, there is always financial, financial means of financial backing that causes the opposition to want to go through these elections despite knowing the outcome. I believe the opposition know that they would never win these elections, but just because it's also a source of income to them, they will participate regardless of that fact. And when we talk about now, this is now as us as a people. When he says one of the ways to try and stop, you know, the ruling government from taking advantage of our country, our minerals. He says we must look into national strikes. National strikes or national stayaways. It's a good thing if we're going to do it collectively. You see, now the problem is, I've actually noticed this, with our trade unions in Zimbabwe. We both know that our teachers, for example, our teachers or our workers in education are incapacitated. They are not getting paid well. And we both know the people in the health sector are not getting paid well. But then you find that this week the health workers will go on stay away, or they call it just a go slow, whatever it is. But basically, it's all a way to share their frustration. But then after they get whatever peanuts they get added on top or incentives, a week later, teachers are coming up and they want the same thing. You fail to understand to say, but you guys want the same thing. Why don't you just do it collectively? So it's also part of that greed to say who has more strength or who has more power that the government will listen. Yet at the end of the day, you find out that it is no longer you that is actually benefiting from this, because everybody is just getting these drips and little promises, and it's not even salary at the end of the day or a wage. It's it's more or less like allowances. That it really doesn't make sense unless if we would do this collectively, to say we all know that we're all incapacitated. Why don't we just put our heads together and form a formidable force, and then we go and share our our anger or our frustration together. So I also find that we should also be looking into some of these things. And I don't know, maybe you've got something to add
Yeah,
on that.
I mean that is a valid point. To be quite honest, in this particular case, when it comes to all these strikes, as long as the economy is in a mess, it doesn't matter. Even if they were to be all united, the government has got a grim choice. It's either they give the teachers, if they give the teachers the teachers or nurses a living wage, who is, well, how are they generating that wealth? The economy is in a mess. As long as Zimbabwe remains a pariah state, no one is going to, no investor with money would want to do business in a country like that. That is what is the underlying cause here. To look at the bigger picture, there is no way this regime, in fact, the Mnangagwa regime has said a tough choice. Is either they try to pay those teachers and nurses a living wage, where it becomes an endless, uh, it's like a kitten chasing its own tail. Because if you pay them when there's no wealth being generated, you are fueling inflation. And when the inflation is rising, those people will be coming back again and again asking for more and more money. And you try to pay them again, that only fuels inflation. It becomes an endless cycle. The meaningful recovery in Zimbabwe, economic recovery, has got to come as a result of the political change which ends the Zimbabwe's present situation of a pariah state. And that can only come if we have implement the democratic reforms and they have free, fair, and credible elections. So the starting point has got to be the political change. People would come, I think within a few weeks, we'll be talking here about the various manifestos, particularly our friends in the opposition. They like to come up with these documented election manifestos where they are promising if they do this, they will have restored ZESA, the railways will be running properly, and the teachers will be paid so much, and nurses will be back in the hospitals and they'll be paid so much. Those election manifestos are totally meaningless, absolutely a waste of time when you know Zimbabwe is not a functioning democratic system. The Zanu PF is rigging these elections. In other words, the results of the election have got nothing to do with political manifestos. When you rig elections, the people who do the rigging do not read the political manifestos. They've already decided who is going to be the winner, and it's not on the basis of manifestos. So why are we wasting time discussing political manifestos? But I can tell you, mark my word, in a few weeks' time, we will be overwhelmed by the number of election manifestos. Personally, I dismiss them as a waste of time because they are a waste of time. And the same applies to the teachers. Same applies to the nurses. Unless we change our political system, unless Zimbabwe stops being a pariah state, Zimbabwe's economy is not going to recover. Teachers, nurses, civil servants will never be paid a living wage. And the millions of ordinary Zimbabweans who are now, as we're talking right now, unemployed, there is no hope of any meaningful economic recovery and them being gainfully employed. That is the issue there.
And just to share his final thoughts. in closing for this article. It says, if we let 2023 pass, oh, sorry, page just skip by.
Sorry.
Sorry, the page just kind of just skipped by. Let me find it. Oh, okay, now I got it. Sorry about that. It says, if we let 2023 pass by without taking real firm action, we should not cry out. We should not cry out come August or September, since the story is going to be the same as 2020, 2008, 2013, and 2018. I promise you all this. Should we not stand up for ourselves now, and the elections are subsequently stolen again? This time around, I will not condemn the regime, since this will be entirely our fault as Zimbabwe. So I found this very 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 good to say. This, at the end of the day, it is us as Zimbabweans that have to decide the future course of action and the appropriate action that we need to take. We shouldn't have people directing us to do some of these ridiculous things, and some people that actually claim things that are just mind blowing, to say, we will win the elections despite. But then you have all these statistics to say 2008, 2013, 2018, they still lost. What difference is it going to be in participating in one of the same, the elections are just going to be conducted in the same manner. So how then do you come up with the idea that this time around it will be different? The last time they promised us something that is different, and clearly that failed. So it's quite absurd to find people with you know with great minds, if I may say, saying something that is so foolish, other than if you they just want to do it for their own selfish gain. So as Zimbabweans, we should be wary of such people that go claiming that we have we have conducted our research, and now we are coming back into this. We are more cleverer, and we are committed to bring change. I mean, for the past 22 years, there has been the claim for change, and yet on the ground we know that not even one uh, reform has been not even implemented, but even tabled during the GNU. These same people, they refuse to even give us, to even table one reform. So what is their purpose at the end of the day? Thank you.
Well, with those closing remarks, thank you very much, Benjamin. And to the listeners, thank you very much for listening. And good night.
Thank you. Good night.